to another installment of Differently Wired, the YouTube channel dedicated to smashing stigma against neurodiversity and promoting acceptance of all forms of neurodivergence. Again, welcome back, everyone. One of these days I will have a new reading. I promise you all this. Today is a kind of an impromptu video. I'm not really scripting this one. In the words of Steve Shives from, well, Steve Shives' channel, this is a not actually video, if you will, of that sort of type thing. I'm just kind of speaking freely as I see fit. Recently, while digging through my storage room, I came across a book that I was given when I was in grade school or middle school, all about Asperger's disorder. What was at that point called Asperger's disorder, because that's a diagnosis that I was given in the 1990s. And when I was in grade 7 and I received this book, that was still the current term used for it. Nowadays it would be autism spectrum disorder. So this book, Asperger's, is one that actually formed a big part of my initial learning and self-discovery journey about my place in the spectrum. And reading it kind of made me realize I wasn't alone and that I wasn't weird, I was just different, and it was okay to be different. And these were all the ways in which that was true. The question I have, though, is, does it still hold up? In light of modern sensibilities around autism spectrum disorder and the neurodiversity movement, does Asperger's, still hold up? Stick with me today and we will find out. So the first thing I want to mention, because I went through it a little bit before filming this video, is that there are some things that gets very right and there are some things that it gets very wrong. I mean, it should be expected. This book was printed in 1999. So 20 years ago. It stands to reason that some things have changed and some awareness is now beyond where it was back then. So with that in mind, I'd like to go through a little bit and talk a little bit about my impressions about Asperger's, Written by Rosina Schnurr, PhD, and illustrated by John Strawn. So, first thing you'll notice here is there is a hefty dose of pathologizing. Now, when I say this, I am not trying to talk down about the fact that learning that your child has some kind of differentiation from the norm isn't a difficult journey for a lot of parents, only that usually it's not wise to transfer those feelings onto your child. You're fully allowed to deal with them and handle them and feel them 100%. But your child isn't innocent and does not deserve to feel those feelings. So that is something that be recognized now. But back then, not so much. So, and especially by the media as well, has always kind of perpetuated the tragedy narrative. And so far, it's looking like we're in full swing with the tragedy narrative. Something was wrong again. My mom was crying again. My dad was talking about seeing another doctor again. I knew they weren't talking about me. Again. I just don't get it. Again. We had just come home from a restaurant. It was supposed to be a celebration. My dad got this new job. You see, my dad is an important person. I don't really know what he does, but sometimes I see him on television. Anyway, a whole lot of people were there. Mostly friends of my mom and dad, and some of the people my dad works with. I was the only kid. I do have a younger brother, but my parents made him stay home with a sitter. I'm almost 11, so I got to go. The meal was okay. It took forever. Then my mom whispered to me that there were going to be toasts. I thought we were going to have breakfast. I told her that I wasn't hungry. It turns out that a toast is when someone gets up with their wine glass and says something about my dad, and then everyone touches glasses with each other and drinks. Which is some toast. It doesn't make sense. Well, this went on for a while, and I was starting to get really bored. And then it hit me. I could make a toast, too. I stood up and talked about how my dad doesn't spend enough time with me. Then I started talking about the weather. My mom made me sit down. My dad made a joke about the weather that I didn't understand, but some people laughed. And we went home pretty soon after that. But it didn't end there. When we got home, my brother saw my mom crying. He asked if I'd done something stupid again. I hit him. He hit me back. Our dad grabbed both of us and marched us up to our rooms. They think that I can't hear them talking, but I can because I opened the door. Right off the bat there, we have some talk about autism spectrum disorder, or what would have been Asperger's disorder at the time, and how embarrassing it is for the family of the person who's going through it. and how much of a scene they made, that kind of thing. We're not off to a great start, but I think they're just trying to set the scene. So by that logic, let's see where this goes. Here I am in another doctor's office. I don't know how many different doctors I've seen. I didn't want to come. I even tried to throw a tantrum, but my dad wasn't in the mood to fool around. My mom says that the doctor isn't going to give me needles or anything. Thank God, I hate needles. He, who turned out to be a she, was just going to talk to me. I've heard about those psycho doctors. You go to see them when you're crazy. I'm not crazy. At least I don't think so. Anyway, this lady doctor's okay. She didn't make me stand on one foot or wiggle my fingers or do anything dumb. All she did was ask me some questions, mainly about school and friends and stuff, and I lied about having friends and told her that I didn't really care about having them. And she actually listened to me talk. I know I talk too much, and people don't want to listen, but she did. Then she made another appointment with my parents. I don't have to come for this next appointment. I guess that means I'm not crazy after all. Let me just stop right there and say that I had the exact same experience with the therapist who my parents took me to for the second opinion about Asperger's when I was a kid. And I know how powerful and validating that can feel. So my heart goes out to fictional kid with no name who's on the spectrum in this book, because I feel you, brother. I feel you. My parents went the next week, and the week after that I had to go again. We all sat in a little room and the doctor started talking about Asperger's disorder, what is now autism spectrum disorder. I said, huh? My parents look just like that they do whenever they meet one of my teachers. Their faces look worried and they nod their heads seriously. I was starting to get scared. What was this Asperger's disorder? What was wrong with me? The doctor smiled her nice smile and said that there was nothing wrong with me, but that I was just a little different from other children. She also said I wasn't crazy. That made me feel a lot better. Now I was really listening. And, okay, that's pretty good so far. So what was different? I guess I still had my huh expression on my face because the doctor just kept smiling and talking. Many things were different, she said. But most important one, because it made a lot of children unhappy, was that children with Asperger's disorder have a lot of difficulty making friends and having fun with other children. They get very easily upset about things that bother them. I knew that was like me, but I never knew it had a name. My mom got up and hugged me. My dad had this sort of sad smile on his face. He put his hand on my shoulder and thanked the doctor a lot. Okay, before I continue, so far I gotta say, the doctor's approach was not a bad approach. She didn't pathologize him. She didn't say, oh, this is wrong with you and you can't do this, this, this. She emphasized that his brain works differently and that he's not crazy, which I hate that term. So far, again, coming at from a place of book printed in 1999 with some outdated language, they're doing okay. The next couple chapters are about friends. They talk about flexibility when it comes to routines and schedules. They talk about how it's important to realize that not everyone wants to talk about the same thing you're talking about all the time, so you have to make an effort to try to talk to kids about what they want as well. And that's a tricky thing because you don't want to sound like you're saying, well, you should never talk about what your special interest is ever, because, again, I don't believe we should ever be shamed for our special interests. But I do think that what they're trying to say here is that you can't do your things all the time. Learning that balancing act is a tough thing for a lot of us. I know I've had my struggles with that, and I'll do a whole video about that. But I get it. So far, it's not so bad. There was one other thing. There's a few other things I want to talk about. In the social skills section, generally speaking, it's about, how to fit in with neurotypical society. And problematic, yes. I think they were trying to help kids at the time as best they knew how. There are a few things, because they're generally positive about it, but there are a few things. If you have little habits like blinking your eyes or rubbing your nose, try not to do them in public. I have to stop myself from making little grunt noises in my throat whenever I'm around people. My mom calls it grunting, but it's just a habit that feels good and is hard to stop. She says I can grunt all I want in my room, and sometimes I do. Okay. Here's the thing about that. What they're describing as little noises is called stimming. Stimming is something that those of us on the autism spectrum, do a lot because it comes naturally to us and it feels good. It burns off excess energy. It helps us focus our minds. And it is a natural part of being autistic. And them curbing stimming in this book, or encouraging the curbing of stimming in this book, is one of the big reasons why those of us on the spectrum have a lot of criticisms about some of the ways that mainstream psychology handles autism spectrum disorder. That's a topic for an entire other discussion, but that is slightly problematic in here. One other thing that I had a bit of a problem with, another big no-no, are jokes. Don't even try to tell them. Other kids will just laugh at you. Somehow I never get it right. I can't seem to get my voice to go up and down at the right times, and then I always mess up the punchline. Sometimes I can't stop myself from laughing before I get to a punchline, and then all the kids end up laughing at me. When I do get to the end of a joke, nobody thinks it's funny. Jeez, I'm not supposed to tell jokes. I wish someone had told me that before I started this channel.
I shouldn't have said that. I should not have said that.
Sorry guys, we're not allowed to have fun on this channel anymore. There's no more humor allowed. This is 100% serious science zone. No, all joking aside. I disagree with that, but I see where they're coming from, because I have not always been great at judging jokes myself. In fact, I went through a phase when I was a kid of telling the same jokes over and over because I thought they were hilarious. My mom had to tell me not to do that because it's not always funny after you've told it a million times. And also I have a bad habit of laughing at my own punchline a lot. It's a thing I do. With that being said, I don't think telling someone on the spectrum to just not tell jokes is a very good thing. It's almost like pathologizing and reprimanding, and it doesn't sit right with me. I think if someone wants to try to explore their humor and see if they can make people laugh, like, there's nothing wrong with that. We should be encouraging kids to do things that they want to do and to try for themselves to see if they can handle something before telling them, no, you can't because you are this, this, or this. So I don't think... I'm going to say something that I'm going to come back to at the end of the video. Their heart is in the right place with that. I don't agree with the execution. They also mentioned that he gets a little too interested in his special interest, which is the weather, and that he needs to curb that and keep it in check. Again, problematic. See where they're coming from, but problematic. And yeah, it was a good quote that I actually came back to. Okay. Yes, I actually like this one. The thing about school is that some parts are really easy and other parts are hard. I remember when I was in kindergarten and could read. Everyone told me how intelligent I was. But I felt really dumb when I had to tie my shoelaces. I still can't tie them. And it frustrates me so much that my mom and dad had to go get shoes that close with Velcro. That's okay because my mom says there's always a way around things. What she means by that is that when I have trouble with something, it's always possible to do the same thing another way so that I won't get upset or I won't struggle as much. She calls it being adaptable. It really means if I cannot change, then the things around me can change, but I have to try really hard to change first. I like that because I think everyone should be encouraged to try the things that they want to do, to try to pursue their dreams and to pursue their needs and their wants and whatever. I think people should definitely be encouraged to try the things they want to try. But I think there's also wisdom in knowing when you can't do a thing the way everyone else does and changing it accordingly. I think that's a nice balanced approach. Like, you can and should and must always change the world around you if you're having a hard time with it. But you can't just not even try and say, well, I can't do it. No. Give it a shot, and if it's not working for you, we'll find another way around it. Adaptations, right? Adaptations are a thing that the neurodiversity movement is fighting very hard for. That's not to say that you should try really hard to fit in with neurotypical society. No, be yourself. But you should try really hard to do things like, if you want to pursue comedy and you're on the spectrum, give it a shot. Don't deny yourself the chance at something you're good at just simply because you have a diagnosis on a piece of paper. If you can't do it like everyone else is doing it, or if you're finding the method that you're trying doesn't work, adapt it, change it. We should be adapting to suit all kinds of needs because adaptation is the key to inclusivity. Inclusivity means adapting to everyone's needs so that everyone has a level playing field, and frankly, I think that's a beautiful idea. So I would give this book that. What else? They go through anxiety busters, what they call anxiety busters. I look at it as helpful stimming for things like when you're stressed out and self-care. And they do talk about the importance of self-care and the importance of toning down your anxiety and really working through your emotions in a healthy way. And I think that's very important to talk about too, because emotional regulation issues are a core component. So I'll give them this. They talked about that. Yes, talking about how he struggles with little things. I kind of enjoy the humorous story they told about this, something about the kid being really bothered by the fact that the nails were out of place in a hardware store, and so he went to the manager and told him about this. It turns it into a oh god, what's my son doing story, which I don't necessarily like, but I think humorous anecdotes like that are important, and I did a whole video on change and the little things, right? So I mean, we all know it's a thing. I feel that. It also goes into how you're not the only one. You're not alone if you have Asperger's in this case, or if you are autistic by modern terminology. There are others like you too, and there's nothing wrong with it. So I kind of like that. And it goes into the important things. To be flexible, to be adaptable, to be appropriate. I don't like that word appropriate. I've had it used way too much against me, and I don't like being told I'm inappropriate. I am perfectly appropriate for the autistic brain that I have. Thank you. And to trust someone, and that's good. At the end of the day, Asperger's, by Rosina, Schnurr, PhD. What do I think? My final thoughts, if you will. I think it's a product of 1999. I think it's a product of the 1990s understanding of the autism spectrum. But that being said, yes, there's some obsolete language. Yes, there's some problematic representation. I actually think for the era it was written, it was trying to be pretty positive. And I gotta say, this book means a lot to me despite its flaws, because it was one of the first things that I read as a kid that really helped me understand how my brain works and why I am the way I am, and gave me an explanation for and strategies for dealing with some of the tougher parts and more amazing parts of being on the spectrum. So despite its flaws, I gotta say, for the era it was written, I'm okay with this book. I wouldn't recommend giving it to someone now, but as part of my journey and as for what it tried to say in the rather imperfect way that it said it, good on you, Rosina. Good on you. And by the way, John Strong, your kid has always kind of been iconic in my head. It looks so hilariously weird, but anyway, thanks for watching. This has been another episode of Differently Wired. We should be back to our regularly scheduled topic discussion shortly, but I wanted to share that all with you because I dug this out the other day and I thought it was fun. Live long and prosper, everyone. If you like this video and want to see more content by me at Differently Wired, remember to like, subscribe, and share this video on all social media. Also, you can find a link to my Patreon down below, and I'd really love if you continue to support me. You guys rock, like I said, and I really look forward to making more content for you guys. So until next time, keep it neurodivergent, folks.